What I'd like to do today, this is going to be one of your first non-technical presentations from the day. So I'm not going to talk field automation, I'm not going to talk HTML5, I'm not going to talk interoperability, handheld devices. What I'd really like to do, and the purpose of my presentation today, is to go over a framework for how to build and scale a successful services business. And more importantly, my intent is to share a framework with you that will allow you to maybe pick a couple best practices, a couple management techniques, and a couple tools that will help you better run your business going back when you get back to the office. So the goal here is really take a deep breath, go over what I'm looking at, what I'm presenting to you, and see if there's a couple things that say, hey, we're really not approaching this the way that this framework is, and see if it's applicable to your business. What I've done is I've built a framework that shows over the last 7 to 8 years some of the fundamentals that are core as you try to build a services business. And today's context is going to be also how do you do that within a product-centric company, just to make things a little bit more fun. So let me go over this in a little bit more detail. And let's start with what's the context we find ourselves in. And this is a good summary of a lot of the conversations I've had in the last couple of days. We come from a product company with a great brand. Everybody knows our brand, but it's for equipment, not for service. Second, there's a little problem with the equipment side of the house. There's decreasing margins on equipment. It's starting to commoditize. You got your first e-auction the other day, and you're just watching price go down. You have a deeply embedded culture of selling equipment, and the problem is equipment is viewed as the end game as opposed to the starting point for future revenue growth and recurring revenue growth. There's a giveaway and a devalue of service. We've been doing this now for 5, 6 years, giving away service to secure a lower margin deal, and now all of a sudden you're a profit center. It's really difficult to start charging for something you've been giving away for the last 4 or 5 years. So you find yourself in a difficult situation. You may be removed from the customer in a 2-step distribution. Now you have to figure out how to sell service going directly. So all of this is the context of what we find ourselves in, but yet we're supposed to grow. So today what I want to talk about is how we're going to survive in this environment and what are some proven practices to focus on. The first thing is there's always a debate about do we need a separate service company and do we need a separate equipment company, because the skill sets are different, the business models are different, but there is one common unifier, and that's your brand. The brand allows you permission to talk to customers. It allows you to talk to customers in a broader value proposition. A lot of times when we propose a new service idea to a customer, many times they'll say, what took you so long? We've been waiting for somebody to address this unmet need. So the brand really allows you to leverage years of equity into a broader value proposition. And so there's an example of what took you so long. Of course, I'll listen to a broader value proposition, but the brand strength affords you an audience. So as you build your service business, take the strongest attributes from your brand and leverage those into dialogue and into market positioning. Take advantage of that because that's probably one of the best intangible assets that you have. And of course, there's also another hidden secret around services, and that is for every dollar of equipment you sell, you're going to create leverage, either in $4 of additional services or $4 of enhancements. Typically 8-to-1, 10-to-1 ratio for every dollar of product over the life cycle of the product. And in some industries, it's going to be a lot more. In other industries, that time frame, it may happen much sooner. So the goal here is to make an acknowledgement that the average sale of equipment and products is an opportunity to capitalize and leverage that into 8 times, maybe even 10 times. That's the services game. That's the simple conversation I have with equipment guys all the time or with senior management. It's a starting point. Leverage the brand and your reputation and trust to build a services business. Now, there's a distinction I'm going to draw here today around the benefits of being an OEM service provider, because that is a very, very differentiated position that you should leverage. One, because you have unrivaled access to the installed base. Second, you have the ability to create customers for life in a sustainable model. You know where they are. You already have a relationship with them. Start managing that as a multi-year engagement. The other thing is establishing the brand strength for which to leverage. Higher leverage of total revenue per dollars of equipment and products sold is another benefit. The credibility as being a manufacturer and a service provider of equipment is very, very strong. When you get into mission-critical type of applications that involve equipment, you're leveraging the engineering expertise, advanced development expertise, technical expertise. You have all an advantaged access to that. That should be able to charge a premium over third-party service providers that are trying to commoditize your offering. The other reason why in our business at Trane and other industries that I've worked in is it performs very, very well during a recession. So the benefits to being a services to an OEM is that when there's an equipment downturn, services can drive a lot of profitability through upgrades, asset extension, and new offerings. And then last, the pull-through opportunities for equipment and product when leading with services, everybody wins. There's a hidden secret. The best services businesses in an OEM company are also some of the best people that sell equipment. We have a business right now, our energy business is about $1 billion, but we sell over $250 million of equipment. So we're a channel for pull-through. And there is always a tension between equipment and service. If we start selling too much service, we're going to alienate our channel that we sell the equipment to. But one of the myths that we've dispelled is if you have a very, very good service business or turnkey business that's selling equipment also in the service business, you have greater share in that region because you see more of the market and you're participating more in the aftermarket that your traditional equipment channel may not. Okay, so I'm going to go over 4 things today that we'll talk about, and I'll leave time for questions. And those 4 things are on this framework of building a services business. This is generic. This could be used for a $20 million business or a $250 million services business. One is creating a competency roadmap. So I'm not talking about hiring. I'm not talking about making your annual plan, making your quarter. But what competencies do you want to build over a multi-year period? And how are you going to do that? How do you build competencies in a services business? And how do you do that when you have multiple offices at different levels of maturity? So I'm going to talk about maturity path and competency building. Second, we come from great companies that have great products and great R&D to generate great products. Well, great service offerings don't happen by accident either. So developing a competency in services product management and developing compelling offers that meet unmet needs and that innovate is a key part of building a successful services business. It's not just about efficiency and productivity. Third, we had a conversation yesterday at the President's Roundtable around services leadership. That is just critical because that's your product, that's your brand. At the end of the day, you're selling people and you're asking people to pay for people's time. So having good services leadership that understands the business model you're trying to create, the culture, the offering, and the type of business that you ultimately want to compete with, having good services leadership is critical. And typically, the bench is very, very weak if you're a product company trying to build a services company. And so you're going to have to deal with that and be very conscious about that work effort. I'll dive deep into that also. And then last, this is the one that drives me crazy. I spend most of my time on this, is just trying to build a services business and an equipment culture. And the problem with the equipment culture is equipment is about efficiency, so take heads out. Make manufacturing more effective. How are you reducing your head count? Here I'm trying to grow head count. So we'll talk about that. It's really difficult to come to a company and say, I need 1,000 people next year, and they fall off their chair, because that's what you need to grow. So those are the 3 things I'm going to focus on. Let's go into the first one about creating a competency roadmap. I was looking at the agenda yesterday, and there's a couple things I wanted to point out. First of all, there's some key competencies around building a successful services business, but where we focused on yesterday was in this space right here. We were working on how do you deliver an effective delivery system? How do you deliver better execution? What's the better thing for the back office? It's very field automation intensive. How are we using technology to advantage the business and make it more productive, make it more efficient, more close to the customer?